Let's get started. I am actually going to hide my video panel, and I'm going to hide the floating controls. So again, I just had to make sure I was recording. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining Passionate Profit, Identify Your Why, presented by Brand You. I'm your host, Brandon Gasson, or the presenter, Brandon Gasson. This is something that's incredibly important to me. You know, for those who don't know, I launched my company as a image consultant about 4 or 5 years ago now. And it's something that I was passionate about. I've always loved fashion. I've always loved styling. I was lucky enough to pursue that. And then obviously I ended up winning Wardrobe Stylist of the Year 2 out of the last 3 years. One thing that always motivated me was actually creating confidence within individuals, right? And telling a story and really identifying through their wardrobe how their best version of themselves, obviously externally, but also internally. And so now this year, actually end of last year, I was been thinking I've done multiple, creative direction, strategy, content work for brands. I really wanted to get started and start working with individuals as well as brands on a larger scale, some more 360 branding. So I started to launch Unboxable, which is a branding agency, and now I'm doing work with individuals and doing workshops like these, as well as corporations. So again, super passionate about it. And for those that are just joining right now, I am going to have a Q&A portion at the end. So I'm going to try to get through this. I have a timer. I can be a little long-winded. I'm going to try to get through this in about 30, 35 minutes and then have ample time at the end to answer any questions you may have, where you can get as specific as possible, really unique to your situation. So without further ado, what you can expect to learn. We're going to be talking about how do you turn your passion into your most enjoyable work. So not only, doing what you love, but doing the thing that you love the most while you're doing what you love. And then part 2, we're going to identify your unique value proposition that's guaranteed to make you stand out. Especially now, really everything could be considered a commodity, right? And everything can be found cheaper, faster, quicker, less expensive. There's really an Amazon version of everything at this point. So the only way for you to uniquely stand out and really create your brand is to be unique in your purpose. And so we're going to talk about that. And then how do you make your goals show up on your daily to-do list? Like a lot of us know what we want to do. We know our passion, but we have a hard time translating that into what we're doing on a day-to-day basis, week to week, month to month, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not only going to talk about how do you actually have your goals show up, but then how do you stay on track to do your long-term goals? And we'll go through all that later on. So why is this important? Like I said, I'm super passionate about it. That's for myself, but why is it important to everyone else? So most of us fall into one of 3 categories, right? We still haven't uncovered our true passion. Some of us haven't discovered it yet. We might not know what we're really destined to do. We like a lot of different things, but one thing hasn't necessarily stood out. For those of us that have found it, some of us, we know what we love to do, but we don't know how to monetize it, right? And so that's probably, a big portion is like we figured out, what our passion is, what we like to do, what we enjoy more than anything else, what's maybe our hobby, but we haven't determined how do we translate that hobby into an actual package, a product or service, and how do we monetize that to support our our lives. And then lastly, we started out hoping to do what we love, only to now hate what we do. A lot of people, they start their business because they were in a particular trade and they loved the work that they were doing. But then what happened is when you start a business, that kind of changes, right? You do a lot of other things that you weren't necessarily accustomed to from before. And so how do you actually, still do what you love to do, I said earlier, with your passion? So getting started. The most unique value proposition you can offer is yourself, right? Essentially, when you're building a brand, when you're creating your differentiator in the marketplace, you specifically, uniquely yourself is what you have the most to offer to the marketplace. What's different? Your point of view, your thought processes, how you look at things and how you present them, how you communicate them. All those things that encompass you is really what your value prop is. And then I have a tip, developing a unique personal brand is gaining a clear understanding of who you are, what you stand for, and what you're looking to accomplish. And again, if you guys have questions, you coming on right now, I will have a Q&A at the end. And for those that would like, I can make this slide available to you via email afterwards, and I'll send you a Q&A after this is done. So your why, let's just jump right into it, right? This is Identify Your Why. And so what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to create the framework for you guys to, again, identify your why, understanding what you should be doing. That will kind of direct who your target demographic is, who your audience is, and then how to monetize it. So this is some work I do with my clients one-on-one. Some of these things you're going to want to think about, but this really will provide you the framework of what you should be doing, and then how to take those necessary next steps. In part 2, reveal your who, is in addition to this. And this really takes everything that we're going to be learning today and apply it to how do you reveal who your audience is, how do you market to them successfully, how do you brand yourself, and so that you're doing your favorite work with your favorite clients, and on and on. So what is the reason you started your career? These are some questions you guys can ask yourself to help determine your why, or help materialize what that should be. Why do you love it so much? If you notice, I emphasize so much, right? It's not just, what do you love? We all love a lot of different things, but what makes this unique? What is it about your potential product or service that is something that you love on a higher level? It resonates a little bit deeper. It has it's more meaningful to you. Like, why do you love this particular thing so much? What is it about the work that excites you? Right. And that could be, internally, you just get, something that reminds you of something from the past. It's nostalgic. It brings you back to a particular situation. It allows you to deliver a specific service that's maybe not represented. Like, what is it about the work that excites you? How do you feel when you're doing it? You know what I mean? So not only just, thinking about it, but when you're actually in the process of doing your art or your service or your whatever work it is that you wanting to do, how do you feel when you're doing it? And I will tell you, even more so than thinking about these things, when I have my clients write it out, it makes a huge difference, because it's one thing to actually think about it, but when you actually put pen to paper, or pencil to paper, if you will, that just, for whatever reason, that makes it that much more real. And then what kind of impact does it have on you or other people? Again, we're going to lean into this a little bit more later, but what impact do you create when you do what you love to do? Again, allow your passion to become your purpose, and one day it will become your profession. And that's essentially what we're trying to talk about here today, is like turn your passion into profit. How do you take what you love to do, create a product or service out of it, monetize it in a way that it will help you establish and obtain your goals, and then also create a legacy. So work within your passion is a critical component of becoming successful, just from the sheer amount of work that is required in order to do so. And I could add hard work. I can testimony to that for myself. There's a saying, you work 80 hours for yourself, so you don't work 40 hours for someone else. And so that is true. That is definitely true. And in order to just put forth that much effort, it's definitely something that you have to love to do. So let's get into it. Your mission. What do you do? Who do you do it for? And what is the impact it makes? Okay, so this is part 2. So we started with your why. And again, you'll see how all these kind of work together in developing your passion, your client, the clients you should work with. Everything kind of works seamlessly. And this is critical. Again, I mentioned earlier, like, how do you go from what your goals are, what your legacy are, what your legacy wants and goals are someday, to how does it show up on your day-to-day basis, right? How do you actually do this and they know that on a Monday or a Tuesday or whatever, that what you're doing is actually getting you closer to your goals, getting you closer to fulfilling your dreams and your legacy. So your mission, again, what do you do? Who do you do it for? And what is the impact it makes? Some examples I gave, these are things I used to use for myself. But again, let's just break it down. I make people confident. So, again, I'm dealing with people. It could have been I could have been more specific. Mine was executives, salespeople, et cetera, entrepreneurs, professionals. But, I make people confident. So that establishes, what I'm doing and who I'm doing it for. And then the impact is so they can pursue their dreams and become their best self. So again, my whole thing is all about, and it's still an aspect of what I'm doing right now, it's becoming the best version of themselves, to have the confidence. And with wardrobe branding, because we get dressed every day, it was a way for me to help facilitate confidence, help manufacture confidence in that person, so they actually feel better about themselves. Because when you have that level of confidence, you have the chutzpah, if you will, to go after things. And so that is what got me into wardrobe branding. As much as I love fashion, that's really what was the motivator behind it. So again, that's a good idea. Like, just because you love something, like, that might necessarily not be the reason behind it. Could be different than just what the surface level might seem. And now I help brands discover their uniqueness so they can provide value to the world. Again, What I'm doing is I'm working with brands, and they're discovering their uniqueness, how they can be unique. And this is obviously a personal brand or a entity, but how can they be unique so they can provide value to the world? I feel like we all have something to offer, big, small, little, in between. But again, answering these questions and really determining, like, what is your why, what is your mission, and this is how it will show up in your day-to-day practices and show up in your work. And then honestly, it will translate into how you actually monetize what you're passionate about. Your purpose, the last aspect of the first part. And again, like I said, I'm trying to stay on task and make sure I don't go over. I want to be cognizant and respectful of your guys' time. But what is your legacy? What's your impact you want to leave on your family, community, and the world, right? Like I'm huge on legacy. I'm huge on doing legacy work. I'm huge on doing things that align within my purpose. I feel like those are fulfilling. I'm not personally driven by money. I mean, everyone, obviously it's a lot of times. I was literally watching a show yesterday, and they were saying, like, even some of these large businesses or tycoons, don't get me wrong, like some of them are driven by money, but usually money is a byproduct of the purpose or the game that they're playing or the impact they're trying to make. And so what is the impact you're trying to leave? And it could be just on yourself. It could be just, on your individual family. Like maybe you're trying to change, the norms within your household, to change the norms within your family dynamic. It could be on a larger scale. There's no right or wrong answer. How are you trying to impact the community? Maybe what you're doing is going to have a bigger impact. But obviously understanding this also determines the scale of your work. And so when we go to your goals later on, depending on the size of your impact, and again, there's no wrong and right answer, that will determine the scale of your work, which will ultimately determine who you work with, how you work with, and the type of work that you offer. So this is super important. Instead of just saying, okay, I want to be a stylist, like, okay, you want to be a stylist, but what does that mean exactly? Like, we know the actual functionality of being a stylist, but what does that mean as far as impact? Like, who are you changing? On what level, on what scale? Is it going to be regionally? Is it going to be locally? Is it going to be domestic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So understanding these will direct the type of work you're doing. Again, that goes into when we do the goal setting to make sure you're actually doing the right work to be on target to accomplish your goals. So second aspect we're going to go to is your value proposition. We're actually doing really good on time right now. Your value proposition, let me see what slide I'm on. Oh, good. It's simply what you can do better than anybody else in the world, which is a huge, huge, huge thing to tackle. When I say this to clients, when we go through this, like literally this is the hardest process, is actually figuring out, and usually it's not on one setting, it's usually one or two or three settings. But I say that specifically because I feel like when you change it to what can you do best in the world, right? Really that makes it as unique and specific as possible to yourself. Like when you're thinking the best in the world, you're thinking you're one of one. You're one of not one of many, you're one of one. So in order to do what you're doing, you're taking your passion, you're doing better than anyone else. You are embracing everything that is unique about you, everything that only you can do, which I want to go through how do you determine all those different aspects. But it is really unique to the person you are because how you can offer it. And honestly, this is not only does this create your brand, but when you identify these things, this also, sure. Wait, let me check something real quick. I just realized. Oh, perfect. I got scared for a second, you guys. I thought that my thing was turned off. So my voice is on. I should have asked that before I got started, but I got that had me pause and my heart went fast for a second. Because a lot of times I turn the volume off on my computer. So value prop again. What can you do better than anyone else in the world? And then in order for your value proposition to qualify as best in the world, it has to be uniquely and unequivocally yourself, right? So part two, what we're going to identify. We're going to identify your value proposition. By the end, you should have a clear understanding of not only what you're great at, but how to package your offering, right? So it's not just understanding what you love to do, but how do you actually create a product or service within that passion, and to whom it should align with, right? Part two, again, we're actually going to go through the demographics, psychographics, avatars of the particular product offering you're going to create. For those that are aware of those, the demographics, just like the who. The psychographics is like the why they buy, like the hobbies and traits of a particular audience that you're trying to reach. And then the avatar that is actually like the ideal transaction. So again, if you're thinking like when I have clients, I have them do an avatar story. And what that essentially is telling them is again, it goes back into who the person is specifically, who they are, how they came in contact, how they identified them and their services that they're offering, right? So was it a referral? Was it through a video? Was it through a TV segment? Whatever, like how did they find you? What is the offering that they purchased, right? Because within all of us, we usually have multiple offerings, right? So what did they buy? And then the post impact of that purchase, like did they become a good friend? Did they become a referral source? So that is the 4 characteristics of an avatar story, and I'll go into that more next time. But by identifying your value prop, this will get you to kind of start to align with, okay, this is what I'm offering. This is why I'm doing it, right? Because you all determine like why you're doing it. This is what you're offering. You're gonna have an idea who that should start to align with, and so just keep that in mind. So what can you do better than anyone else? How is it unique to only yourself, experiences, or special talents, right? So that is your value prop. So your value prop, again, what need can you deliver better and or different than anyone else, right? So what need in the marketplace? Again, when we're talking about a product or service or offering, we're talking about something that you're best in the world at. The great thing with social media, with marketing now, is there is no specific niche that is too small. Like you have the ability to really connect to your tribe in whatever scale that is. So you really at this point, you can do anything you want to do and figure out a way to monetize it by following these steps, right? So there is no such thing as, I have a specific talent and I just love this super random thing. Like, no. Nowadays, with the ability to scale, you can actually reach other people that have that same passion as you, and those would be your target demographics, if you will. So what can you deliver better or different than anyone else? What unique skill or talent do you possess? What experiences have you had that aligns with that particular talent? Again, I'm making this as specifically you as possible, because this is going to kind of reveal and pull out like what is your unique value prop? What is different about you? And again, that's what you're gonna market yourself. That's how you're gonna market and brand yourself. And so it's no longer about worrying about being authentic. Like once you actually go through this process and you understand what you're offering, who you are, authenticity goes out the window. I say like being authentic is when you don't have to think about it, right? And so this is going to allow you to brand and market yourself in a way that is authentic to you, authentic to the audience you want to acquire, and that will align scale-wise to your goals. How does your current lifestyle uniquely identify with this talent or skill? And then I can't see it. Let me go back. Name a unique point of view you have in regards to your skill. Excuse me, I couldn't see that, it's kind of covered up. But name a unique point of view you have in regards to your skill. And that's gonna actually be important, because when you understand your unique point of view that you're gonna offer it, that is gonna be how you're gonna communicate what your product or service is. So that's your value prop. And yeah, super important. So now we're actually in the third portion, the goal setting part. And like I said, we're actually doing really good on time, so we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. But goal setting to the now takes your someday goal and draws a straight line to what's on your daily to-do list. Right. So not only we're taking like, what do we want to do someday, lifestyle, lifetime, whatever, like what is that goal? And then how do we get that to show up in what we're doing on a Thursday morning, on a Friday afternoon? What are we doing this Wednesday that we can identify, and we know that this is what's going to keep us on target or in line with obtaining that particular goal, that particular lifetime or legacy goal that you're going to have. So one thing that I tell people, and I say all the time, saying yes to your goal is really about saying no, right? It's really understanding, hey, in order for you to say yes to something, there's going to be a lot of no's you're going to have to say. And it might seem, opposite, but if you really think about it, if I'm saying yes to this means I can't do this, this, and this. And someone was asking me the other day, I was talking about the things I have going on, and I was telling her, like, now I say no a lot. And really, I think when you get in line with your goals and understand what you're trying to accomplish, it really provides clarity. And it's almost freeing, because you know what you're going to say no to, because you can clearly identify that this is not in alignment with what I'm trying to create, what I'm trying to establish, what goals I'm trying to set. So in this last aspect, what we're going to do, what we're going to cover, we're going to goal setting to the now. By the end, you'll be able to make sure you're performing the daily tasks to stay on track for your goals. What we're going to break down your big goals in order to determine your daily priorities. How we're going to do a step-by-step process of reverse engineering your priorities. So how do you take your big goals, break it down into smaller pieces, smaller chunks, and how does it show up on what you're doing today, this week, this month, this year? And then a step-by-step process. So we're looking at your big someday goal. We're going to reverse engineer that and go back to today. And how do we make it align to what we're doing today? Get us a drink of water real quick. This is a great slide to stop on. What is your biggest goal you have for your life career? Think big. So again, I'm a huge proponent, a big thinker, big on goal setting. I hate the term realistic. I don't feel like there is no such thing as unrealistic goals. I think I read a book before. It says there's no such thing as unrealistic goals, just unrealistic time frames, right? So essentially anything can be accomplished if you understand but it's going to require a substantial amount of work, right? So when you're thinking about this, like don't downgrade your goal. Think as big as possible, and then we're going to reverse engineer how that works. This particular goal doesn't have to have a specific time frame. It could be your lifetime goal, at least 5 or more years out. So when you're actually going back and you're setting these goals, think of, okay, maybe if you guys already have it, I don't know how big you guys are on goal setting, but it's like, okay, what I want to do 5 years or more, or what I want to do someday, and that's going to be the foundation, if you will, we're going to create like this goal setting. So this is how we do it. Someday to today. Starting with your someday goal, we're going to ask the following question for each time increment. What needs to be accomplished to stay on track? And so I read a book a long time ago. It's actually one of my favorite books of all time. I recommend it to anyone. It's called The One Thing. It was written by one of the founders of Keller Williams. But whether you're in real estate or not, it really is an amazing book, and that's kind of where I got this principle. I've adapted it a little bit to kind of how I like to utilize it. But essentially what you're doing is it allows you to take your big someday goals and reverse engineer and kind of be like, okay, what do I need to do 5 years from now, 1 year from now, this month, this week, this day? Again, I just talked about earlier, like understanding what you're saying no to, right? So this allows you to clearly identify, like, what are your priorities? What do you have to do? What should you be doing? And what am I going to say no to? Because I'm going to get into it later, like everything's not created equally. So again, just ask this question as you drill down. And the thing is, you can't jump. Like it's hard for you to actually connect the dots if you say what I need to do today to be on target for my 5-year goal. Like it's hard for you to actually do that. And so you actually need to go on a step-by-step basis. Like what I need to do, what needs to accomplish for me to stay on track for 5 years. And then how you do that follow-up is like what I need to do this year in order to stay on track for my 5-year goal. And then you go, what I need to do this month in order to stay on track for my 1-year goal, in order to stay on track for my 5-year goal. And you keep on doing that. And what I like to do is it's best to review like this once a week. So like your 5-year goal, I do that like once a month or whatever. You know what your 1-year goal is. And then every month I'll create like a big goal for the month. And then every week when I do this once a week, I'll review my weekly goal in alignment to my monthly goal. So I don't know if you actually do the 5 years every single time. You can. But I really actually look at it once I get my 5-year, someday, 1-year goal. I really kind of do it on a month-to-month basis, but I revisit it weekly. And that kind of allows me to make sure that what I'm doing is the work that needs to be done in order to obtain those goals. Goal setting in action, right? So again, I kind of went through this already, but what is my someday lifetime goal? And then this is the question you want to ask. In order to stay on track, what needs to be accomplished in the next 5 years? In order to stay on track for my 5-year goal, what needs to be accomplished this year? In order to stay on track for my annual goal, what needs to be accomplished this month? And so on until you get to today's priority. Definitely want to bring this up. Like I said, we're actually getting close to the end, but the 80-20 rule, like I said, I talked a lot about like, what are you saying yes to versus what are you saying no to? Everything is not created equally, right? A lot of times we have these long to-do lists, and that's one of the reasons why I try to get this on my daily to-do list. A lot of times we have these long to-do lists, and what that states is What the 80-20 rule, if you haven't heard, is the Pareto principle. Other people say is that 80% of your effects and results are caused from 20% of the output of the work, right? So essentially it's saying that a small percentage of your work is the driving force behind more of your results. And the goal with you really focusing on what your goal is and doing it on a day-to-day basis is how can you do more of the 20%? How can you do 80% of the 20%, right? How can you really focus on the actual drivers within your business, within your brand, whatever it is? You can actually, it's applicable to every aspect of your business. So you can look at it like within your social media, content. What types of posts? What are the 20%? What are the top posts and that are generating the most of the results, the most likes, the most shares, the most comments? How can I duplicate and do more of that, right? Within my business, what types of clients, are generating the most income, right? So how do I actually work with more of those clients? So and you have to determine what those cohorts are. But within everyone's business, within pretty much everything you do, and it can skew a little bit, but everything's definitely not created equally. So how do you, specifically and strategically do more of your more important work? And that's really what what this is doing. And for me, your most important work is doing work that's going to align and create and kind of align to your legacy. So how do you do more of that work? Again, like I said, everything you do is not created equally in regards to the results you receive. What you can do and what you should do are two different things, right? There's a lot of things that we can do, but what should you be doing to help you, create and obtain your goals? So this is the final question. We kind of went through everything, and I'll open up for Q&A. And you guys, again, you can get as specific as you want. This is a lot, I know. Like this is going to take some time to actually jot it down. But once you determine what your purpose is, and once you've identified what your value prop is, the question you have to determine is, how are those things gonna align and allow you to actually achieve your goals? Like how, and this is the thing also I mentioned earlier, like once you realize what your value proposition is, you might identify that who your target audience is may or may not align with your goals, or they do align. But you realize, you come to grips with, you're gonna have to scale your business much larger, right? Because maybe you want to offer something at a democratic price point. Well, if you have a lower price point, you're gonna need a lot more customers. So what does that change? What does that change about your business? Like, how are you gonna scale your business? Maybe you thought you only want to be local, but now you want to be regional. Or maybe you actually are like, those goals, I'm really more about my passion. Some of those goals I can tweak a little bit. But that is the question you're gonna have to answer once you go through all these steps. And it's going to identify, again, who your target audience is. Maybe you're going to realize that your offering is a little bit different, a little bit more unique, and your target customer is going to be a little bit different. And so, again, that kind of really will break down all these steps: your purpose, your legacy, your what's unique about you, your goals. And this will kind of identify how you do this on a day-to-day basis. And then, like I said, in part 2, we'll actually go into revealing your who, right? So understanding all these things, if you haven't already, this is going to be next Tuesday, same format, probably about 30 minutes or so. This is really going to focus on who your avatars are, your target demographic. Your avatar is the perfect transaction. That's how I describe it. Like, what does that look like? Who is the customer? How did they find you? What did they buy? And then what was the impact or the result after they made the purchase? So we're going to go through all those aspects, identifying all these things. Not only when you determine what you are, what your goals are, this will also reveal how you brand yourself across all platforms, whether it's blogging, whether it's photos, whether it's social media. Every touch point, you'll be able to rely on this as a foundation for what you should be doing and how you should be coming across. So that I pretty much I got through in about 20